Hello and welcome to the INSS 13th Annual International Conference. I'm Michal Chatuel, Research Fellow at the INSS, and with me is General Joseph Votel, a retired US Army 4-star officer, and most recently the commander of the US Central Command. General Votel is also a non-resident distinguished fellow at the Middle East Institute in Washington and at the Belfer Center in Cambridge, and he's an advisor to the Combating Terrorism Center at West Point in New York. Thank you for being with us today.
It's great to be with you. Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to start off with kind of picking your brain further to your 39-year experience in the region and in the US military, to ask you perhaps what is the central trend that you can outline that you've seen here in the region, and how this trend affects Israel and how it affects the United States?
Thanks. I think that's a great question. I think the key trend that I've seen is that the area has become more complex and more conflicted over time. Back in the beginning, we just had a problem with terrorism, then we had a problem with Iran, and these problems, and we had a problem with Iraq. And so these problems tended to present themselves one at a time. But what we're seeing now, I think, is these challenges being layered on top of each other. So we have terrorism problems, we have instability problems, we have a challenge with Iran, we have ungoverned spaces, rogue regimes like Syria that are in place. And so I think the region has become more and more complex and conflicted over time. And I think that has made it more of a challenge for the United States. And I think it's made it more dangerous for the companies, or for the countries that are on the periphery of the region, like Israel is, if I could, from a military standpoint, of course. And so, I think this has brought our interests to the forefront, and we've played out in a number of different ways over the years. But the area remains extraordinarily important to us. It's important to us not just for the interests that we talked about earlier today, but especially because it's an area where we have to compete. If we step away, others will step in, and that's not good for us, and it's not good for Israel. So I think it's, even as complex as it is, we have to continue to navigate our way through the region.
Thank you. I think that's an important point, because I think lots of Israelis are questioning if the United States will indeed stay in the region and what your interests are here. So I think I didn't ask you about that because, and those who want to listen to a more extensive answer, you spoke about that in your address at the conference. My next question would be, and I think a lot of Israelis are interested in this, Israel's relations with moderate Sunni states. And I'm asking this because, of course, you're aware of the increasing shared interests that Israel has with moderate Sunni states. My question to you, again, from your perspective as head of CENTCOM, will or can these shared interests blossom into full diplomatic relations? What needs to happen for these relations to kind of escalate or reach a more in-depth level? And also, I'd like to plug this into the current reality. Can the Trump peace plan play an important role here?
Thanks. Well, I guess my response is this is how it begins, isn't it? That it begins with the start of a relationship, and with people beginning to talk about common interests, maybe even just limited common interests, and in this case, security. So, the excellent relationship that Israel has with its neighbors, Egypt and Jordan, these are important ways to begin this, and then reaching out to the other Sunni countries in the region and beginning to develop limited but substantive discussions on topics of importance, I think, is an excellent way to begin to normalize relations in the region. I can't make a prediction of where it goes, but certainly I can say that's how I think it begins, is that you build on relationships over time, they get stronger. Many places we have strong military relationships. This provides a platform for diplomatic relationships, for business relationships, commercial relationships, and this is how it begins. So I think it can lead to something more. Israel and the appropriate countries will be the determinants of that, but I think it can lead to something, and I hope that it does. As to whether this can play a role in the president's recent policy announcements here on the Middle East peace plan, well, certainly certainly we would hope so. But again, I think there's a lot of details, and there's certainly a lot of work that has to be done. So I don't want to overpromise in terms of that, but I think the key point is that we need to follow up on these opportunities of increasing relationships, because they will provide further opportunities down the line.
Well, the fact that you said that there is potential, I think, is a very important statement for Israelis to hear. My final question is regarding the bilateral relations between Israel and the United States. I'm asking because when Israelis, or when we speak about the bilateral relations from an Israeli point of view, we tend to look at our relations, Israel-United States relations, from a national security perspective. Because of Israel's geopolitical situation, we know that it's very important for us to have the United States as an ally. But particularly in the field that you come from, I think that Israel is also an important ally for the United States. Can you shed some light on how Israel is actually helping the United States in the region? What is the benefits for the United States from this relationship too?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, I think the United States and Israel share common values, and certainly that counts for a lot here. I mean, the fact that Israel is a strong, resilient democracy in this part of the world is an extraordinary asset to the United States. The fact, as we just talked about, that Israel can reach out and begin to develop relationships with moderate Arab countries in the region, Sunni countries in the region, and use those as platforms to address security issues and to add stability to the region, I think is definitely an asset to the region. And then, of course, Israel is a modern, vibrant country that is prosperous. Its people are industrious, extraordinarily well educated. This is not only good for Israel and for the United States, it's good for the region, it's good for the globe, frankly, to have this. So there's just so much that we share with the Israelis that there is a very common interest, and we definitely benefit from that. And I think the region does as well, and it's important that I think we continue to look for ways to move that forward.
Okay, excellent note to end on, and I'm being signaled that we need to end. So thank you for joining us, and please feel free to join for additional interviews and updates on the INSS website and on our social networks. Thank you, and thank you.
Thank you very much.